You're listening to Where You Live with Gene and Tony.
This is Where You Live with Gene and Tony. We're broadcasting from the Natural Green Lawn and Landscape Studios, and we're brought to you by Extreme Exteriors and American Family Insurance, the Kim Bennett Agency. As an American Family Insurance agent, Kim believes that there's much more to insurance than the policy alone. It's about providing you with dependable protection and service. Kim believes that trust and credibility can't be demanded. It can only be earned by what you say and what you do. Give Kim a call at 651-482-1598 and tell her Gene and Tony sent you. Time now for a message from the Minnesota Multi-Housing Association. The MHA Minute is brought to you by Start to Finish Maintenance Contractors. Start to Finish provides 24-hour service for all of your home and business maintenance needs. Call Start to Finish at 952-259-1219 for your home, for your business, for your peace of mind.
Did you know that the top reason renters do not renew their leases is not because of rent increases? The biggest complaint among renters and the most important gauge of renter satisfaction is how the management responds to maintenance requests. Responding to maintenance calls quickly and effectively makes for happy residents. Happy residents make for reduced turnover. Reduced turnover makes for better cash flow. That's just one of the hundreds, thousands of things you can learn from the Minnesota Multi-Housing Association, the best, most comprehensive resource in the state for owners of everything from a duplex to hundreds of units, and for townhome and condo associations as well. MHA holds 135 different classes each year for owners and on-site staff, including in-depth certification courses for maintenance and management professionals. In fact, the most widely recognized certifications for apartment industry professionals across the United States were designed right here in Minnesota by MHA. Find out more by visiting mmha.com. That's two M's, mmha.com.
So, Gene, we're talking about a story where an association insists that free money was offered to them by the city in which they're located. And then when it got right down to it, the city reneged on that offer. Now, what we've determined in reading this story was that free money offer wasn't in writing, right?
Yes.
There was no contract in writing. Now, that brings to mind our lease documents when we're renting an apartment. There's a clause that says specifically, beware, there are no verbal agreements associated with this lease. So when I'm signing a lease with someone, I will explain that in this way. I'll say, okay, if you and I have been sitting chatting, if the guy who showed you the apartment chatted to you about the apartment, if you've had a conversation with the on-site manager, and you think one of us told you that you could park your 3 cars, your boat, your snowmobiles, and your RV in the parking lot, you better make sure that is in writing. You better make sure there's something about that in your lease agreement, because if it's not in writing, it doesn't exist.
That's right. The only clause where something is free is Santa. The Santa Claus. Otherwise, everything else is going to be
and that's
in
only
writing.
If you've been a good boy or girl, right?
Once a year. That's right. And that's once a year. Here with this association, yes, this board member is upset. We found out the real reason why is because he went ahead with the project before he really understood what it was that was going on here. And now he said, we have pushed our finances to the limit. Well, no, not we. It sounds like you did, Mr. Fallu, on the board.
Yeah.
He made the statement. I find this just incredulous. He said, we had to authorize the masonry contractor to begin work before the association received any money. Really? Why?
Yeah, there's no backup for that statement.
Why did you? Here you were pushing your finances to the limit. And what I want to say to those that are serving on a board, you've got to remember that you have a fiduciary responsibility.
That's right.
People usually get to dealing with budgets with a property, and the number for most people, for a lot of people, can get to be so big that it's meaningless and they don't know how that works. Let me give you an example. People will be on the board and they will say, you know what, we're going to have a budget this year of $10,000 for landscaping. Well, that sounds wonderful.
We can do anything.
Yeah. And so now it's you get a early spring, and so late April, early May, you want to just go gung ho on all the projects, and you've got a property manager who says, "No, we're not going to do this." Why not? We've got to get everything done now.
Yeah.
And but wait a minute. You've got a budget that's based on collecting money for a whole year. You've only collected 5/12 of the money for the year.
Yeah.
So how are you going to pay for it?
Yeah.
Are you going to tell every contractor to say, you know what, you've got to wait? We'll pay you 5/12 of it now, 6/12 next month. They're not going to do work for you that way.
Yeah,
so
that's true.
to say now that there's an impatience that people have because they want to be able to show that they've done something.
Mm-hmm.
I understand that. I get that. But you also have to realize that as a board member, you've got a responsibility when it comes to the money and the finances of the association.
Absolutely. That's in fact, I would say your top responsibility. Your number one responsibility is financial fiduciary.
Oh, yes. To spend that kind of money is just ridiculous. What are other concerns that you have with this?
Well, it's the whole thing about having things in writing. You have to have your agreements in writing. You can't just operate on a verbal conversation. Not when you have to answer to other people. You know what I mean? If that's how you want to conduct your personal business and your personal life and running your own household, that's one thing. But when you represent a group of people and their money, you better make darn sure that you've got all the T's crossed, the I's dotted.
Yes, and even though we talked about before that there is directors and officers insurance.
Do you think this guy would be covered?
Well, you need to be careful. If someone was careless and reckless in their regard, they could be removed from that corporate shield.
They could be denied coverage under.
There's some
gray area. Right?
I don't want to scare anybody, but
right.
but that certainly could happen.
Right.
But you can't just say, well, whatever happens, no worries, we've got insurance.
And it brings up a good point, and that is when you're serving on a board and making decisions like this, you need to have trusted advisors, and you need to ask your trusted advisors about these situations. Maybe that's your property manager. Maybe that's your attorney. But this is a time when you need to get advice from people that work in these areas all the time. So many times a board will say, "Oh, we don't want to ask the attorney. Why should we spend the money on getting a legal opinion?" Well, it's because in the long run, it could be saving you a lot of money.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Well, let's take a look at one last story here.
Okay, and this is another one about misuse of association funds.
Yes, it is. And this one is, here's the situation. There was a board member, remember that, a board member who wanted to borrow money for a personal business transaction. So he thought it would be a good idea. He went to the rest of the board members at his association. He said, I would like to borrow some money from the association, but it'll be a good deal for the association because I'll pay 7% interest on the money, and where can you get 7%?
Nowhere.
That's really good.
That's right.
I'll repay the money within 30 days of a demand by the board. So, hey, you give me the money. Don't worry. If you say you need it in 30 days, I'll have it there.
Okay.
Hey, you got that guarantee from me.
Okay.
And he said, I'll execute an assignment of rental income from a rental property that I own so that as goodwill that you know that you're going to get some money.
Mm-hmm.
Plus, he said, I will execute a confession of judgment for the full amount of the loan so you don't even have to go to small claims if I renege.
I'll already agree to this. Right.
And I'll repay the whole thing in full within 90 days.
Plus interest. With the interest.
With 7% interest. Well, the board members went ahead with everything. Fortunately, it went off without a hitch. It went well. The association got the money.
Everything, and this guy performed as he promised.
But what ended up happening is now the board is, they thought they would share how wonderful they were with handling the association's money, and they shared it at the annual meeting.
And what happened?
Oh, man.
What kind of response did they get?
The board members were in for the fight of their life.
So
and here we are years later, and it says that these homeowners and board members are still upset
Yeah.
over this because
Yeah.
of the potential that could have
Yeah.
taken place.
The 2 board members almost lost their seats. When they didn't, other candidates rebelled and said, we want a recount of this. Some of the owners sued the association, and also sued individual board members. There were countersuits, and it was just, it's been a mess.
And the bottom line here is board members need to remember state statute requires here in Minnesota, and I'm sure just everywhere else here in
Right.
in these United States, that the principal amount of the association's money, whether it be in a reserve or operating, cannot ever be at risk.
So no matter what kind of investment you're considering, because it's not a bad idea to try and earn some interest on these reserve
No,
funds.
not at all.
You don't want them to just sit there like a lump, not earning any interest. But you're saying that legally you cannot risk the principal.
The principal
so
has
that would
to be.
That would rule out personal loans. That would rule out day trading on the stock market, right?
All of
that would
that.
rule out the casino.
Yep.
Put it in a certificate of deposit.
Yeah, remember, board member, it ain't your checkbook. It's everybody else's in the association, too. Hey, well, that's all the time we've got for today's show. Thanks for joining us. Have a great rest of the weekend. We'll see you here next Saturday on Where You Live.
Bye-bye, everybody. Well, goodbye.